In this video, we are going to review the zero product property, or the ZPP. ZPP. We talked a lot about this in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. This is what helps us actually solve polynomials. When we're solving polynomials, we are looking for the zeros, so we need the zero product property. So, if I'm looking at this problem right here, and I have x cubed equals 36x, some algebra students would try out this thing where they would divide both sides by x. And if you do that, then you get x squared equals 36. And if you're like a really good algebra student, you would take the square root of both sides, and you would get x equals 6. And if you remembered, you would also remember negative 6. But there is a problem with this solution. And the problem is that you are missing a third answer here. There is another number that works that we have divided away, and that number that also solves this equation is if I let it x equal 0. But if you do this just by taking square roots, you miss out on that 0. And so we need a method of solving these kinds of problems that doesn't let us miss any of the zeros. So that method is called the zero product property. The zero product property says if you have two numbers that are equal to 0, then one of them has to be 0. Either the A is 0 or the B is 0. All right? And because we're finding solutions by setting each factor equal to 0, we call these the zeros of the equation. All right? That's a lot of words. Let's look at it in an example. So let's go back to this example that we did before. Instead of dividing x away, which causes us to lose one of our solutions, instead I'm going to set this equation equal to 0. So I'm going to rewrite it as x cubed minus 36x equals 0. And then I'm going to factor the left side of this equation so that I have a bunch of factors and I can set them equal to 0. So when I factor it, the first thing I'm going to do is look for my GCF, and there is one in this problem. The GCF is x, and then I'm left with x squared minus 36. All right, and you'll note that this right here is a difference of squares. I have a perfect square minus a perfect square, so I am not finished factoring. I have x plus 6, x minus 6. Well, now I have three chunks that are all equal, when multiplied, are all equal to 0. So what that means is either the first chunk equals 0, the second chunk equals 0, or the third chunk equals 0. All right? Well, the first chunk, if x equals 0, then x has to be 0. So that's our first solution. If x plus 6 equals 0, then x has to be, so the first solution is 0. The second solution is a negative 6. That's the value of x that makes the second one 0. And the third solution is positive 6. If x minus 6 equals 0, then x has to be 6. So now I have three solutions that match up with my three factors, and these are the zeros of this function. So let's look at another one. All right, I have 2x squared plus 11x minus 21 equals 0. You can either guess and check or use the AC method to factor this out. I'm going to use the AC method just because it's always good to get a little extra practice. So I'm going to multiply a times c, and I get negative 42. And I need two numbers that multiply to negative 42 and add to 11. And those numbers are 3 and 14, where the 14 is the positive one and the 3 is a negative one. So negative 3 times positive 14 is negative 42. So I'm going to use those to split the middle. And I get 2x squared minus 3x plus 14x minus 21 equals 0. I'm going to group these now. So I get x times 2x minus 3 plus 7 times 2x minus 3. And I get that my factored form is the common factor of 2x minus 3, and then the leftovers factor of x plus 7, and that equals 0. So now I have my two little equations, my two things that are going to lead me to a solution. I get that 2x minus 3 has to equal 0, or x plus 7 has to equal 0. All right, so that means x is, if 2x minus 3 equals 0, if I solve that for x, I get positive 3/2. And if I solve the second equation for x, I get that it has to be negative 7. So my two zeros, or two solutions to this equation, are 3/2 and negative 7. All right, let's look at this last one. I'm going to solve this using the zero product property. I like having the first term being positive. So I'm going to move everything over to the right-hand side. So I'm going to say 0 equals x cubed plus x squared minus 20x. I cannot use the zero product property unless the equation is set equal to 0. There's no other product property that I could use. There's no such thing as a 6 product property, right? It has to be set equal to 0 in order for this method to work. So now that I have this equation set equal to 0, I'm going to factor out my GCF first, which is x squared plus x minus 20 equals 0. And then I have 0 equals x, and then this trinomial factors into x plus 5, x minus 4. So you'll see that I have 3 pieces that multiply together to equal 0. So either x is 0, x plus 5 is 0, or x minus 4 is 0. So I have 3 tiny equations that lead to my solutions. X is 0 from the first one, x is a negative 5 from the second one, and x is positive 4 from the third one. So these are the 3 solutions to this equation.